Let's get some of the latest as it relates to reaction from lawmakers in D.C. on the ongoing war in Israel with a Congressman Mike Waltz. Congressman, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, sure. Good to be with you.
Of course, you're a member of the House Intelligence Committee. I do want to kind of start out with some of the breaking news that we do have. The fact that no hostages are set to be released prior to Friday now. What is your reaction to that and reaction to kind of the fact that I guess kind of a temporary ceasefire in effect, but really it would seem
Yeah.
a ceasefire for something like this really is kind of impossible.
Well, I think the Israeli government needs to approach this and the IDF with eyes wide open and with a very healthy dose of skepticism. Hamas has a long history of violating ceasefires. Even in 2014, with a UN brokered ceasefire, Hamas subsequently, after the ceasefire was in place, took several Israeli soldiers hostage. So I don't trust them. I'm sure the IDF doesn't trust them. And they have a long history of using these types of situations to their advantage, whether it's dragging things out, claiming they can't find the hostages originally named, and then asking for more time on the back end as they frankly reposition their forces and in position for advantage.
And President Biden spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today. From your perspective, what should a country like the United States be doing? I know obviously there's the question around financial support, which is obviously where the debate comes in. But in terms of the United States being there for a country like Israel, a country that, as Nikki Haley has pointed out several times on the GOP debate stage, is a pro-democracy country, what should the United States be doing on that front?
Well, and I mean, to Nikki Haley's point, this entire deal was debated by the Israeli War Cabinet and then went to the broader Knesset, their parliament, a democratically elected body in line with our values, with liberal Western values of freedom of the press, freedom of religion, and freedom of assembly. So I think that's incredibly important that we define the two parties that we're dealing with. A terrorist organization that violently took over Gaza, and one that is freely elected. And then look, separately, I just have a heck of a lot of I think we should have some restraint in terms of our role. We have a vested interest in the sense that Americans are held hostage. Reporting on the deal is that only 3 will be released out of the 10. But I fully believe that is where I think that's where the extent of our engagement should largely end. This is a sovereign country that's been violently attacked, has every right to eliminate the threat on its border, and we need to get out of the way. Where the Biden administration could have a tremendous difference is changing our Iran policy and doing a reversal on maximum pressure. So as long as Iran is flush with cash, has billions at its disposal, we are going to continue to see these types of attacks from its proxies. So that's where Biden could have the most impact in helping the situation, starve Iran from resources, and that will then starve the various terrorist proxy organizations from having the resources to conduct these kinds of attacks.
And just lastly here, I mean, you mentioned Iran. Obviously, there are a number of other fears as it relates not just to the war in Israel, but also other, global geopolitical challenges. To what extent do you fear that these conflicts, these wars, could start to have a bigger impact on our side of the world here in North America, on the American people, given the fact that, as you said, there is the threat that other countries could start to become involved in some of these wars?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, it hasn't been that long since we had both directed and inspired terrorist attacks in both the United States and Canada. I always say it is relatively easy to bomb a tank or hit a ship. It is very difficult to bomb an idea. And the idea of Islamic extremism is going to take in a much broader strategy and a long time to defeat. The other way that it's going to affect us is it's obviously, as we're seeing with attacks on shipping in the Red Sea, 12% of global trade transits the Suez Canal. We're seeing all kinds of diversions of different types of resources, even flight patterns away from the conflict zone. But I think, the biggest fear is obviously of a regional escalation, that Israel could face a four-front war between Lebanon, Syria, West Bank, Gaza, and then being hit from the south by the Houthis. Again, all roads lead back to Iran. And frankly, even with the American bases being attacked in Syria and Iraq, until Iran feels pain, until the regime has things held at risk it cares about, it will trade proxy casualties, its various militias around the region, for Israeli and U.S. casualties all day long. That's a good deal for the regime. So ultimately, the Biden administration will have to do what Ronald Reagan did, will have to do what President Trump did, which is strike Iran, whether that's cyber, military means, or otherwise, or financially, in a way that will restore deterrence and therefore restore peace.